Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Joseph Ward, your historical homeboy, right here on the On the Shoulders of Giants YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in, for checking me out, and being a part of this journey. We're here to give you the sung and unsung heroes of the African diaspora that you probably wouldn't learn about. So thank you for rocking with us. And I just want to let you know that we're now on Patreon. So you can become a patron and help us empower and educate as many communities as possible throughout the African diaspora. www.patreon.com/OTSOG. Now go ahead and get to this video so we can drop this knowledge on you. Peace out. Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up? Thank you once again for tuning in to this On the Shoulders of Giants channel. You know, your historical homeboy Joseph Ward back here. I apologize for the timing of this video. My intent was to get this video out on Thursday, but I'm actually in New Orleans now at a conference that I was sent to for my job, and I thought I was going to have more free time than I actually had. So it's like late at night. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. My home time is like 12 now, so apologize for getting this video to you late, but I wanted to make sure I get it out. Remember to share this channel, like, subscribe, hit that bell so you can get all these notifications, and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend about On the Shoulders of Giants, where we give you easy access to the stories of your sung and unsung heroes of the African diaspora. And I do my best to tell the truth and tell stories that paint our African people in a truthful light and better light. So with that being said, let me go ahead and get into this video about Robert Mugabe. President Mugabe was the president of Zimbabwe for 37 years, from 1980 to 2017. And he's a very controversial figure to a lot of people. The American media and a lot of other European or white outlets paint him as a horrible tyrant. Some African people, some African outlets, and some people who are from Zimbabwe would paint him in the same light. Very controversial figure, so that's why the title is see a liberator, see a tyrant, see a good person, see a bad person. What kind of president was Robert Mugabe? I will be lying. I'll be lying out of my teeth if I sat here and said that I agree with everything that Mugabe did. I'll be lying my ass off. But overall, was he truly the tyrant that he's painted out to be? He did some things that, like I said, that I did not agree with. But so let's go through some of the things. And I got my information pulled up. So if you see me looking this way, I'm looking at my information. So let me start here. A lot of people say after his first wife died, he changed. His second wife, Grace, who's 41 years younger than him, they call her Gucci Grace. And they say she always had aspirations of wealth and power. And that was one of the reasons why she was able to finagle her way into Mugabe's wife. His original wife, his first wife name was Sally. And Sally died in 1996. And he married, Sally died in 1992. I just had to make sure I get my information right. Sally died in 92. And in 96, he married Grace. So I want to get that right. Sally died in 92, Grace, he married Grace in 96. So Mugabe was a highly educated man. So at one point, Zimbabwe's the educational prowess was on the world stage because Mugabe has a background as a teacher. He taught in Ghana for a while before the 1980s, before he was put in charge of the ZANU party, and he was able to use his background as an educator and as a teacher to be able to have Zimbabwe as one of the most educated or have a strong educational system in Zimbabwe. One of the highlights of Robert Mugabe was him seizing land from white owners. So I was reading earlier, it was saying that at one point it was 270,000 white people, right? White people who owned the best land in Zimbabwe. And millions of Zimbabweans were basically moved off of that land, ancestral land, and had to live on parts of land that wasn't as fertile. So with the whites living on this on the best land in Zimbabwe, and the blacks not living on the best land, the economy was kind of wrapped around the white people living on the land. So when the whites were ran off of their land, it did shake up the economy of Zimbabwe. It destabilized the economy for a while, and basically the rate was like 231 million to 1 cent. So the value of the Zimbabwean dollar was not that good. So he came to Mugabe came to power in 1980, and in 1980, that's when Zimbabwe was created, the actual state of Zimbabwe, because Mugabe grew up in Rhodesia. At the time, the area was Rhodesia until the 1980s, when he came to power and he expanded education and health welfare for black Zimbabweans, and he also helped to liberate the African people. So Zimbabwe was created, and some of the foundation of that was found back in Ghana. Go back to his time learning under Kwame Nkrumah. Shout out to Kwame Nkrumah. So, and like I'm reading now, it says in 1995, a World Bank report praised Zimbabwe's rapid progress in the fields of health and literacy. Run by a former teacher, the country had the highest literacy rates in Africa. So that's a point in the right direction for Mugabe. So some of the bad points about Mugabe was they say he started to change. They started to really notice a change after 2000, but some say you can see some of the changes in the 1980s. Like this says, in fact, the warning signs were already there. The massacre of thousands of ethnic I can't really say that word, seen as supporters of Mugabe's rival Joshua Nkomo in the 1980s and the start of the economic decline, but these were usually overlooked. So basically, this is saying in this particular article that you can go back to the 1980s, and when Nkomo was seen as an opposition to Mugabe, and Mugabe kind of used his power to get what he needed. So two things that made Mugabe seem like a tyrant. One, running the white people off of the African people's land. I don't have no problem with that. You're supposed to do that. If you're an African man with real thoughts of, this is our land, this is our ancestral land, my ancestors cultivated all of this, then y'all white folk came in and stole it and lived on it for generations and passed it down stolen stuff. So get your ass off the land. So they did that, but it shook up the economy. And they were talking about in some of the elections, Mugabe used his military power and some of the other power that he had to intimidate the opposition, to shake up the opposition. And around, I think they said around 20,000 people were killed who were supposed to be supporting the democratic change, the movement for democratic change. Because the ZANU-PF was Mugabe's party, and then the movement for democratic change, or the MDC, was the oppositional party. And according to this article and some of the other things that I've read, Mugabe seeing the MDC as an extension of Europe or the UK, and these were their ideas to make sure that they continued to have a stronghold over Zimbabwe. So it was an invasion, but they basically taking the land back from white-owned farms. So that was that was a couple of things that did was help to remove a source of funding for the opposition. This is saying that it allowed the war veterans or the people who supported Mugabe to intimidate many thousands of black farm workers, largely seen as opposition to what the ZANU-PF, which is Mugabe's party. So even with that, some of the questions we have to ask ourselves on the outside looking in is, were these people just regular civilians looking for change, or did these people actually support white ideas, white thoughts, white rule, white power? I haven't found enough information to say yes or no, so that's one reason why I'm making this video. Please feel free to comment on this video, any information you got. I don't know it all. I don't know it all about anything. So I do my research. I was going to do this video earlier, but I want to read more, do a lot more reading so I can articulate my points correctly. So if you have information to add, please feel free. I just say be respectful. Don't be arguing with people in the comments and stuff. We don't really get down like that on Shows of Giants. We have respectful disagreements. If you disagree with somebody, cool. Just do it respectfully, but give facts, not opinions, facts, right? So it says some of the things that that taking the land back did was to re-energize his supporters, right? Some of whom had been losing faith in his ability to redistribute the land, and one of the grievances behind the 1970s War of Independence. So Mugabe in the 1950s, I know he was jailed for being in opposition to the white majority rule, like I said, or the white minority rule. So the majority of the land were black people, and the minority of the land were the white people, the Europeans. And I told you about 270,000 versus about 4 million or maybe 9 million, however many million Zimbabweans in the area. And that did have a drastic impact on the decline of the economy of Zimbabwe, who had one of the most stable economies before that time. Also, like I said, the number of black people or number of Zimbabweans who were killed, who were seen as oppositions to the ZANU-PF. If you supported the MDC, then you were seen as a traitor, sellout, or whatever. And you know, you felt the wrath of Mugabe, basically. Ain't no sense of trying to sugarcoat that. You felt the wrath of the MDC, right? Yeah, you felt the wrath of Mugabe. Now, with that being said, does that totally make him a bad person? Does that totally make him a tyrant, right? Because whenever you are opposing white power, white supremacy, of course you're going to be seen in the bad light. I don't agree with every move he made. So maybe a lot of those people who were Zimbabweans should have been killed. I don't know. Just from my humanitarian standpoint, from what I know, like I said, don't know it all, but maybe things could have happened differently. Maybe not. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, and I'm fine with being wrong. But let's get this on the table, because the main thing is, I don't want Mugabe to, part of his legacy, to just be he was a bad man. Mugabe had great qualities, and Mugabe had bad qualities. Mugabe did great things for Zimbabwe, and Mugabe did questionable things for Zimbabwe. But I don't think we should totally paint him as a tyrant. I don't, especially when these European nations have, even America, have leaders who have done far worse than what he is, and are praised. See, white people, move this closer. White people know how to tell the stories, right? And I think that our black outlets, we need to make sure that we tell the stories the way they're supposed to be told. We use our platforms correctly, and not just allow these white platforms to just say, well, this is what this is, and this is what this is. This person did this right, this person did this wrong, and all these things here. Because it's in their best interest. Of course, it's always going to be in the best interest of white media to make white right and black bad. So it's crazy. So let me read some more about Mugabe. He was, like I said, he was qualified as a teacher in 1958. He went to work in Ghana, which had become the first African country south of the Sahara to end colonial rule. And so that inspired and encouraged Mugabe to want to go back to Rhodesia at the time and liberate his people. And out of that came Zimbabwe that we know of today. He, according to this, he had a couple different faces. A lot of the information that I read was saying that in his earlier years, he was a nicer man than in his later years. Some say he realized he was losing grip on the power that he had and sought to turn enemies into friends, or sought to create relationships with enemies to help him sustain his rule. Some say all he wanted to do was remain in power because he loved power. A lot of people say, a lot of information said that early in his time he spoke out against greed, but then became greedy. I have to do more research, but I'm just giving you the information that's out there, right? But all in all, I still don't think that we can just throw him in the whole tyrant can. If you think so, that's cool. I'm not saying you right or wrong. I'm not saying I got all the answers, but I don't think we could just throw him in the total bag of tyrant. He had his ups and downs. He did everything, like this says, he did everything he could to improve the lives of his people. He wanted education for all. He wanted health for all. He introduced a leadership code limiting ZANU-PF, the cadres, to 50 acres per land, and then certain people were limited to 50 acres per land, but later in his life, of course, he had more. So that wasn't something that he kind of stuck to. So can't lie about that one. He was a person who was politically savvy. He knew how to use the power that he had. He was a very, very intelligent man. He was a man who his opposition to white supremacy was monumental, though. To have your country break away from this British rule, to free your country, to gain independence and be able to just exist the way you were as an independent country, that did good. Toward the end of his time, everything wasn't all peachy keen in Zimbabwe. We can't act like that. I know until like 2008, the economy was still really off. The economy was still like not that great today. Now, Emmanuel Mnangagwa is his successor. And my podcast, the Freedom Train Podcast, check it out at www.freedomtrainradio.com. My co-host Pat and I, we talked about how, because we kept a close eye on the elections and everything that happened with Mugabe. We talked about how Mnangagwa, as soon as he came to power, within 48 hours was working on giving land back to white folk, because it was seen that Mnangagwa had close ties to Europe, to the UK, and he was working for them. And this is one of the things that he had in mind to do, is make sure he put the best land, or even land in Zimbabwe, back in the hands of white people. It's up and down. It's tricky. It's not all great. It's not all great. It's not all black and white either. There's some nuance. There are a lot of things that you have to look at. You have to be honest with. But I can't sit here and just say Mugabe was a bad, tyrannical person who just tried to just be an overlord and just take over everything. We will not allow white media to control our narratives, control any narrative that comes with our people. I encourage you to do your research on Mugabe. But I just don't think you can just sit here and just paint that man as a bad man overall. Did he do some things that we don't agree with? Yes. But did he do some things that we agree with? Yes. So making sure I use my platform to get information out, making sure we do our critical thinking about our black leaders, black people who fought for other black people, and not allowing white media to only have a voice about what's going on. Now, like I said, if you disagree with everything I'm saying, fine, cool. That's all good. Put your information in the comments and be respectful. If you do agree, cool, that's fine. Put your comments in the comment section and be respectful to anybody who disagrees with you. But we will not allow the white media to paint our leaders, especially people who did good and did some powerful things for black people, to just paint them as bad people, as tyrants, as just overlords, when you got so many white rulers and so many people from the West who we could really look at. Look at goddamn Andrew Jackson. Look at the founding fathers of America, right? They're seen as a great man. Andrew Jackson is seen as a great man, but we're going to call Mugabe a tyrant. That's that bullshit. Andrew Jackson, if you went down with his white thoughts and all that stuff, Andrew Jackson was killing blacks, he was killing the natives, he was killing anybody who wasn't supporting white supremacy. The founding father, think about how America was founded. America itself was founded on rape, pillaging, murder, racism, anything filthy you could think of. That's what America was founded on. But in this country, we praised on white folk. In this country, they try to beat it into our minds that these white folk were great people. Oh yeah, and they owned slaves. They supported slavery while they wrote their Declaration of Independence. Because in their mind, independence was all about just white people, because they didn't see us as human beings. So these people are heroes, but Mugabe is a tyrant. Hell on out of here. Fuck out of here with all that. Got to get the hell on with all that if you really trying to paint that. Now, that doesn't mean that he didn't do some things that we disagree with. I've said that over and over and over, but I'd be damned if you're going to try to convince me that he's a tyrant and George Washington was a great man. George Washington is a hero. Thomas Jefferson is a hero. Andrew Jackson is a hero, right? They heroes, but Mugabe is a tyrant. Nope, not going to fall for that. Not going to fall for that. That's why On the Shoulders Giants exists, to give information so we can look at our heroes, we can know who our heroes are, and critically think about the information surrounding our heroes, right? And we have to tell the truth, though. We have to tell the truth. Everything wasn't all peachy keen, but the man was not a total tyrant. The man was not just this dictator who just was all about this tyrannical rule that just ruined everybody's life. Not gonna do that. Not gonna happen. Y'all gonna sit here and tell me Alexander the Great, so-called great, was a hero, but Mugabe is a tyrant. All right, whatever. But this is my video. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Remember, do your own research on Robert Mugabe, but also do your own research on other African leaders and these white leaders as well. Like Dr. John Henry Clark told you, study it all. Don't just study the information about black people. Study the information about white people. Study white history. Study Asian history, all these other, especially white European history. They tell on themselves in their own history. So study all that. Remember, you can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/OTSOG. I have online courses available on that. You can catch that. What else got going on? Check out my website at www.ontheshoulders1.com. Got a lot more information about On the Shoulders of Giants and everything that goes on. And with that being said, I'm Joseph Ward, your historical homeboy. And I'm out this piece, and I'm about to go take my ass to sleep. But remember, think critically about these things. Don't allow the white media to paint these pictures of these black leaders when we know that that's not the total story. It's not the total story. Remember with Mugabe, he had good and he had bad. Total tyrant, did he do some things that was messed up? Yes, he did. But he also did some great things for Zimbabwe. And we're going to remember him from both. We're going to know him for both, good and the bad. And we're going to assess everything. But I just don't think he was a total tyrant. And I don't think that we should let the white media just go and just paint him the way that they're painting him. So that's how it is. So once again, peace out.